Hey, this is Miles and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking to all those investors out there that are nervous about being paid next month's rent from your tenant and aren't sure what to do. March, you may have felt, or at least I did, that you were going to be okay because while things were moving quickly during coronavirus and the nation shutting down, most of the tenants were probably working most of March and those checks would be enough to cover April's rent. But now, maybe. Hey, my name is Miles and I'm a real estate investor here in the Bay Area. I've been buying and selling property myself since 2015, but I've also been in residential lending since 2011. So I would say I have a unique perspective because I actually know how much investors are making each and every month or losing each and every month because I know what their mortgages are, I see what their payments are, and I know what's going on out there with the normal mom and pop investor. I see all financials and pretty much underwrite everything myself. So understanding how much you need as a buffer is something I see investors make a mistake of all the time. But before I get into it, I want to give a huge shout out to all my other investor colleagues whose collaboration and ideas has led me to bring all of this together in this video. Without them, this wouldn't have been possible. It's a team effort. That's what real estate is. Without further delay, let's get it. Let's take a step back and assess the landscape of things. Currently, coronavirus is affecting the way of life around the world. Now, my state of California is a little unique because while we were on the forefront of getting ahead of the virus, the state has been shut down a little longer than most other states out there. So people have been out of work for quite a long time, and it's at the point of getting scary economically, at least for me. Various citizens are calling for rent freezes, while some politicians are calling to cancel your rent altogether. Most states have called for a ban on evictions with no hit on credit as well. This leaves us landlords to wonder, how am I going to pay the mortgage? While most of us want to be understanding to our tenants, we understand that this is a business, which means we need to stay afloat. We need to pay that mortgage, otherwise the tenants may lose their homes as well. And we have to have this mindset when we go and assure the tenants that we got to get paid so we can cover the mortgages, the expenses, and the property maintenance. So the first thing I did was I wrote a letter to my tenants. Let's go through some of the letter now. However, I have to give a huge shout out to Bigger Pockets because they provided me the idea of the letter and some examples of what should be in it. An example of the letter is below, so let's take a look. We'll go through it and we'll at least summarize kind of what it says and what are the key factors of it. The first section was really stressing the importance of following the county and the state's mandate on keeping a distance and staying in place. Their health as landlords in general is our utmost importance, so following the rules should be followed. This is especially important if you have common space or play areas. You really need to spell out the rules of laundry areas, storage, play areas, because that is going to get murky. It's up to you as landlords to be clear about what is expected, and should they have a problem, to contact their local authorities. The next part of our letter is dealing with maintenance and repairs. Fellow landlords, now is not the time to paint the house. Now is not the time to do a new roof. This is the time, preppers. This is the time we've been waiting for, kind of, where we are essentially using the reserves that we've been building over time. Now, if it's a clear leak or there's some sort of emergency that needs fixing, of course we have to do that work. But let's not do the work that isn't unnecessary now. That's kind of a given, but we need to stress the importance to the tenants that any maintenance will be done, especially if it's urgent, but maybe delayed because maybe your county or city or state has certain ordinances where workers can't go in there or don't feel comfortable going in the homes. So timing and just being patient is super key for our tenants to understand. And lastly, rent payments. This is where we let our tenants know that the United States has not forgiven mortgage payments. There is something called forbearance, and you can see my thoughts on that in another video, but that is not deferring payments or forgiving the payments. Landlords are required to make the payments, and thus tenants are required to pay rent. Remember to communicate with your tenant. The communication is the most important thing, and if something has affected them, to contact you. What the heck happens when they actually call? Here it's going to be really important that we understand what the government has been doing to assure that money is getting out to people who need it. Here are 5 essential steps that you need to take in order to communicate that they got to pay you, especially when they call. So let's go through each one of them. Number 1, the most obvious thing is to ask them how they've been affected. I know that many either have lost a job, been furloughed, or been put on part-time work, which all mean that they've lost income. So the first thing we need to make sure to do is ask if they've filed for unemployment. Well, I heard rumors of a maximum $600 a week. Those numbers seem to actually be $450 a week. Assuming they're on this duration of COVID, that comes out to about $1,950 a month in income. Obviously, it's important here to understand how many adults are in the house, which is going to tell you how much they're actually getting. But it gives you an understanding of where the tenants actually stand. Rents vary throughout the country, and so do incomes. So this first question will really go deeper into breaking down their budget and making them understand how much they actually have in order to spend for rent. Number 2, stimulus money. Inevitably, you have qualified your tenant when they moved in. You know exactly how much they're making. However, this obviously could have changed. But you're going to know whether they qualified under this stimulus money that was being given out. But the important thing to do is you got to ask. You got to ask how much they made and really understand if they're going to get paid. Now, as you can see, we're starting to walk them through the line. We're really walking them through their budget so they can have an understanding of how much they're receiving so they can pay you. Assuming there's one adult in the house, we can expect them to have gotten already $1,200. And if there's 2, you can double that. While over 88 million Americans have already received this money, there are tens of millions of more that have not yet gotten it. So from steps 1 and 2, we can really start to see how making a rent payment is possible. Whether they have 2 adults, 1 adult, or they have kids, we can start to deduce the numbers for them and really break out, are they in dire straits and do they actually need help? After following the above 2 steps, we can start to go into creative methods of how we can collect all the rents. So one way is to simply ask, how much can you pay? While this question may seem obvious, some landlords are going to feel insensitive or simply just not want to ask. This is important because you're providing room and board and there is a cost to that. If the total rent's $1,500 a month and they mention they can only pay $1,200, now you can start to negotiate other money they have coming in. So there may be a timing for another stimulus check that may come in, or they might join another company as part-time or full-time, because lots of companies are hiring like Safeway and Amazon. You can let them know that, hey, the $1,200 is due by this date, the $300 can come towards the end of the month, and just set up a date. Number 4, payment plan. If they won't be able to make the entire payment, you can work something out for the tenant to pay you later on in the year. Maybe they pay you this for a couple of months, the $1,200, and then all of a sudden you start accruing the $300 over a few months, and they have to pay it by a certain date. For example, if they're going to be short $300 that month, maybe you just let them know you have a few months where you don't have to pay the higher amount. Just pay the $1,200 for 3 months. This would put them $900 in the hole. However, that's something you can work out over time. You can give them a date by October or December. You can say, I need an extra $100 a month until you come up with it. Last and certainly not least, number 5, security deposit. This is one reason I'm such an advocate for collecting a higher to maximum amount security deposit. Remember, landlords, this money isn't ours. This money is the tenant's. This is something that you can negotiate with your tenant. If you know they're not going to be able to make the payments or the entire amount, you can negotiate to take some of that security deposit and use that for the rent. You can supplement that or float it for a few months and then have them reapply that money into a security deposit later in the year. So this is another creative way in order to make sure that you can use some of the money to pay off the mortgage. These are my 5 steps for ensuring rental payments. What are yours? Let me know in the comments section below. There's no guarantee to make sure your tenant's going to pay. But this is why I preach we need to be strict as landlords in vetting potential tenants. Sometimes taking the absolute highest rent isn't the answer, but getting that solid person that has a history of paying rent, paying their responsibilities, will make the relationship between tenant and landlord last way into the future. Thanks for watching my video, and if you found some value in it, feel free to destroy that like button and subscribe. I'll see you next time.